Here, and I want to welcome you to a Sonny Hersh election special. I really can't read the teleprompter because of the lights, guys, but I'll just have to do my best. Want to welcome, and I was going to turn to the camera. This is my camera. I want to welcome all of you here. I'm your host, Avi Myers. I'd like you to introduce you to my co-host, Jim Nally. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Avi. It's always fun to get together. It's when the leaves are changing and falling from the trees, I know that it's about time to do our election special again.
And I always look forward to the election special very much, and I think we've got a really great show lined up for you. First, we're going to have Dorothy Brown calling in live, and then at 11 o'clock, we're going to have Anita Alvarez, the State Attorney of Cook County, in studio live. So while we're waiting to hear from Dorothy Brown, and by the way, Jewish Chicago, is available at newsstands everywhere, but quickly running out. So I'm already getting calls from places to restock. I've got minimal copies left. By tomorrow, I should be okay. I understand our first guest is on the air, and I would like to say hello to the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, Dorothy Brown. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Ivy. How are you?
Good, thank you. And I want to thank Anzura Neri very much for arranging this to happen. Every time I deal with her, good things happen. And please say hello to my co-host, Jim Nally.
Hi, Jim.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
And so I take it you're on the campaign trail today.
I'm on the campaign trail. I'm in the basement of a church. You may be able to hear it in the background. I'll be going up to speak in about 10:45. But I wanted to call in to urge the citizens of Cook County to go out and vote. Vote for me, of course, Dorothy Brown, punch 53, and vote for me. I've worked very hard. I want to thank Avi and Jewish Chicago for their endorsement. It means a lot to me to be endorsed by Jewish Chicago, and of course you, Avi, because you stand up for what's right for the citizens. So I just want to really show my appreciation, and thank you for permitting me to come over your show very, very often.
Oh, thank you, and we're really glad to have you, because, people just, they see what they see in the paper, or they see these 15, 20, 30-second sound bites on the news, and they don't really know what's going on. And, so much, every time I read what the Tribune, who was such a big fan of yours, has to say about you, because maybe they don't like the way the wind blew today, just makes me want to take the Tribune and Bruce Stoll and just toss them out a window somewhere. Not literally, but close. I mean, the paper, yeah, Bruce Stoll, no, just figuratively. I know. Let's talk a little bit about the job, and I've got to remember to stay looking at the live camera and not turn around here. Jimmy has an interesting question about some of the stuff that's been happening. We talked about this on our last show. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, Clerk Brown, as you're aware, the Supreme Court has issued new guidelines this week regarding electronic filing of court documents. And can you talk a little bit about that in terms of what's being done now and what you anticipate in the future?
Yes, we were very excited about the fact that the Supreme Court, headed up by Chief Justice Kilbride, decided to issue the electronic filing standards. So our next step is to then put in an application letting them know that our electronic filing system adheres to the standards. The only thing that we saw different was that they want us to submit to them a letter from the various bar associations saying that they had done a review and assessment of our system and agreed that they adhere to the standards. We don't see that as a major obstacle. It may just take a little time for us to get all of them in and give them an opportunity to see the system. Many of them have probably already used our system in the commercial litigation section because, as Arby knows, we've been electronically filing since May of 2009, but we've been waiting patiently for the approval to expand throughout all of the civil case types. And so I'm just excited about this new, the new standards that have been issued, and that says that we will be able to move forward for Cook County.
Will this add to any additional costs for people who are filing court papers, or will it actually result in any savings, either or?
Well, it absolutely will result in savings because, and what we've been trying to educate attorneys and individuals about is that electronic filing system is the way you want to go, because it keeps you from having to come down to the courthouse. So you save on gas, you save on parking, you save on if you come on the CTA, you save on that, because CTA costs, I don't know, $2 or more now. So do it from the comfort of your home or your office and save on that. Of course, attorneys save because they don't have to have their clerks come to stand in line, or they don't have to come and stand in line themselves. So you're talking about someone that's probably making, even if they're just making minimum wage, they're making more than what our electronic filing system costs. So that's going to be a huge saving. Also, what that permits you to do, attorneys and pro se litigants to do, because our system can be utilized by both, what it permits them to do is actually make their records electronic. They don't even have to print it out any longer. They can actually have electronic records and then print on demand. That will reduce the paper costs for law firms.
I also understand one of the criticisms I heard about you that I know from talking to you and interviewing you, and by the way, you're actually going to be on our show this Thursday or the Thursday after on the regular show, which is weekly 7:30 p.m. Channel 19, and Friday at 2:30 p.m. on Channel 19, the Northtown News Magazine, is that people blame you for still using carbon paper when you couldn't do anything about it until you just got this ruling.
Absolutely. Plus, RV, carbon paper and giving people carbon paper to be able to make 3 copies or 2 or 3 copies or 4, however many they need, is really a courtesy on our part. We provide the forms. That's all we're required to do from a statutory standpoint. We give them carbon paper because they are required, the litigants are required to give the other side a copy of what they've found. We don't have to do that. We can let them go back to their offices and make a copy of it themselves, or tell them to go to the copy machine and pay for extra copies. So that's the alternative. We just give that to them because people show up without enough copies. And that's a courtesy on our part. We can actually discontinue copy paper. And since people have such a problem with it, it's something that's an expense that I really don't have to incur.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when I was typing and I wanted an extra copy, I'd have to put some carbon paper in the typewriter.
Absolutely.
And actually, it was a pretty cool thing in those days, but times have changed greatly.
Times have changed. And the other thing, too, is that, we have carbonated forms, but now that the county has cut the budget, won't let us take the forms out to a regular printer, they have us actually using the county's printer, and the county gets behind on printing these carbonated forms.
Yeah, that's actually NCR paper, and that's very expensive.
Exactly. Very, very expensive. And so it's done in-house by the county, so we're kind of at their mercy as to whenever they can actually print them. And so we do that as a courtesy, too. We don't have to have the NCR forms. We are statutorily required to just give the form, and that's what we do. But we do it as a courtesy to the public to give them the 3 or 4 ply form.
Very good. So how many different campaign stops do you have today?
Oh, I probably have about 8 today. And we did several on yesterday. We did several on Friday night. It's been very, very good. I was telling someone I went to a domestic violence event on yesterday as well as a breast cancer awareness event. This month actually have a lot of different things that you celebrate. Italian American Heritage Month. I had one of those programs and went to the Columbus Day Parade. Then we have the Polish American Heritage. I went to one of their events. Actually, I went to several of their events and one of their candidates forums. Breast cancer awareness, domestic violence awareness, all of that celebrated during the month of October. So it's very, very interesting. And even did a Nigerian parade this month because they were celebrating Nigerian Independence Day. So this was a very busy, busy month, the month of October.
Well, you can visit the whole world within Chicago and Cook County. There's no question about it.
You sure can. And I visited, of course, Harvey Meyer, Jewish Chicago.
And we were very privileged to have you, and thank you. And of course,
Absolutely.
I always like your good rhymes, like 53 punch for me.
That's right. Everybody, citizens of Chicago, punch 53 and vote for me. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Clerk of the Circuit Court Dorothy Brown. I want to wish you all the luck in the world, and I want to remind all of you to vote on Election Day. Thanks
All
again.
right, very good. And
Okay.
early vote.
Vote early.
All right, then. Okay.
Maybe not
Thank
often.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Be well. Bye-bye. That was great. That was a really good question, Jim, that people don't realize about electronic filing. I had somebody like moaning to me that they're filing their domestic. She's a domestic violence advocate. I mean, she doesn't advocate for domestic violence, but in other words, she's trying to prevent it. So she's telling me she's got to fill out carbon papers and all the rest of it. I didn't even know that the clerk's office was providing the carbon paper. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, particularly when people are representing themselves, people will come and they're not familiar with the system, they're unprepared, and as the clerk indicated, people are you're required to serve copies of what you file on your opponent so they know what you're filing, and if they want to respond to it, they have an opportunity. And but carbon paper, it's just like going back like 2 generations. We're in an electronic age now, and I think that what the Supreme Court rules are envisioning is a system at some point where you will serve your opponent by email. It won't even be a situation where you have to have a hard copy and put it in the mail or hand it to them. When you electronically file your paper with the clerk, you can similarly file it via email and serve your opponent via email too.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you know what? When my state senator threatened to sue me, I got it first through email.
Yeah, well, email is, just look at our everyday lives. I mean, so much information now that we get is coming off the internet. And, you've got Jewish Chicago on the internet, as well as the hard copies that you make available for people at various sites.
Yeah.
So it's just recognizing, that the times have changed and we live in an electronic age, and you have to keep up with that.
Yeah, it makes life easier. Even when I went to an office place the other day, they said, would you like a printed receipt or would you like us to email it to you?
Right, and with the electronic data, just in terms of keeping records, think about how much easier it is, to keep track of what you've been doing and expenses if you're a business person, things like that. It all can be done electronically a lot easier than trying to get a big bag of receipts and sort through them and determine what is what.
No question, but you know what? The truth is our listeners are paying the big bucks to us. Huge, massive. I mean, we're wealthy beyond belief. To hear us talk about politics.
Yeah.
So, first in terms of overview, we're really here to talk about local politics. This show is airing in the city of Chicago. It'll be on YouTube later today. If you go to ntnm.org, you'll find a link. If you go to Sonny HTV on YouTube, that's SONNY-HTV on YouTube, you'll see it there along with all the shows we've done for the past 6 or 7 years. And you can get to see dozens of people who are running for election. Probably 50, 60, 70 different interviews with people who are running for office this time that we've interviewed during the course of this year. Not to mention the live show, Thursday 7:30, Friday 2:30 on CAN TV. But we're live in Chicago right now. The suburbs will hit us later. There aren't as many races as we'd like this year, and not all of them are really contested. But in terms of interesting races, I think the most interesting race we can talk about is the 10th district for state representative. And that is where you have the incumbent, who actually is not technically the incumbent anymore because he got thrown out of office, Derek Smith, federally indicted, who actually has been on the show after the indictment and before the indictment. And the FBI actually compared the wiretaps to our show of him, as shown by Chuck Gowdy on Channel 7, which was kind of cool. And he's running against Lance Tyson, who is, now, this is interesting, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong here. The Democratic organization urged everybody to vote for Derek Smith, even though he was under indictment. Okay, figuring that, we'll just run somebody against him, we'll beat him real easy. So the guy running against him in the primary was a Republican who ran as a Democrat. And frankly, it's very hard for me to say good things about anybody that punched a lever for a guy, not just, just because he's indicted There's indictments and indictments. In this country, you're really not guilty until you've been convicted. And he hasn't been convicted, and I don't know that he necessarily should have been thrown out of the House yet, considering the high crimes and misdemeanors, albeit legal, that Mike Madigan and Lou Lang and other people like that, have been laying on the public for years. But the Democratic organization urged everybody to vote for him. He won, okay, and he won handily. He won something like 80% of the vote. And then they put up as a Unity Party candidate Lance Tyson, who actually I'll let Jim. I'll let Jim tell you a little. Are you allowed to talk about him, or?
Oh yeah. The interest of full disclosure, Lance Tyson is a client of mine and also a friend of mine. So I just want to make sure you know where I'm coming from, and I'm with Lance 100% because I know him. I've known him for a number of years before he decided to run for this office, and he's a very smart, very energetic, very hardworking guy that I think would be terrific in the legislature.
He was Todd Stroger's chief of staff. He got somewhat fed up, I understand, and left, which is, I guess, to his credit, and to a certain extent.
Right. Lance, the way this occurred, Avi, was Derek Smith was a Democratic candidate in the primary who won. And I think there was some thought that he would resign after winning the nomination. That would have allowed the Democratic committeemen within that representative district to come together and choose a candidate then to fill that vacancy. Well, Mr. Smith decided to stay as the nominee, and because of that, the option of the Democratic committeemen coming together to replace him was off the table. And then this past summer, the House met, and I think it was 110 to 1 or something, voted to remove him as
Was Smith the one?
Yeah, he actually didn't appear, so no, he was not the one. But they voted to remove him from his current term of office. However, he's still the nominee of the Democratic Party to run for a new term, which would be elected this November 6th, and then he would take office, whoever would win, in January of 2013. So because of that, and because of the fact that he's chosen not to resign the Democratic nomination, Lance Tyson was chosen to run as a candidate of the 10th District Unity Party, a new political party, which is formed only within the 10th District, and he will be on the ballot as the opponent for Derek Smith.
The funny thing is, from my standpoint, what I really mind the most about that race is that they backed Derek Smith in the primary. First of all, in terms of who they were running against, I think they might have an easier time right now against the other guy. But that's a whole different story. If this were the NFL, okay? I mean, you know what? Some of these guys I'm really friendly with, like Jesse White, Walter Burnett, I know from Can TV Studios over here. You know what? All of you guys ought to be docked the office for 2 years and lose your next first-round draft choice and be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. Roger Goodell, Pete Rozelle, even David Stern in the NBA would do just that. It's just a little bit much having you guys like tell everybody to vote for Derek Smith in the primary and then come off this way now. And plus you're the same guys that picked Derek Smith. So you know what? I know you guys can do a lot better than that. Some of you guys I like a lot of the people involved in the process. But you know what? Everybody makes mistakes, they're human. And backing him in the primary was like aghast. Absolutely. I was like,
Well, I think the Democratic committeemen of that representative district have made a very, very good choice in backing Lance Tyson as a candidate for this office. Lance is an attorney. He's a very well-known attorney. People respect him. He's worked his way. He's worked in government jobs. He's also had a private law practice. He has a lot of good ideas. So the problem for Lance is that running in a district that's traditionally heavily Democratic, there's always a propensity of people who are supportive of the Democratic Party just to vote for whatever Democrat appears on the ballot. And there's a big education effort underway, I know, to get people in that district to understand the differences between Lance and the Democratic nominee. And I think that's going to be a very close race, in my opinion, because it's still very hard to get people to pay attention. As you know, You put, on YouTube and on the live program that we're on today and on the programs that you run on cable, not only in Chicago but in the suburban area, you give Avi the opportunity to get beyond the soundbite, get beyond the 5-second answer or the one paragraph quote in the newspaper, and let people see a fuller exposition of who these people are who are running, what they stand for, what their positions are. But people don't always take advantage of that.
No, they don't. And as a matter of fact, I'm already ready to kick 2 people, including one of the people who's in the studio, because if they would have read Jewish Chicago first, okay, they would have learned how to write in a candidate properly. In my district, okay, there's a lot of us, and I'm the leader of the laundromat, just don't like Ira Silverstein's antics, and you can read about that in Jewish Chicago. His wife too. I mean, and antics is a nice way to put it. I'm not going to go into length.
Well, Bobby, let me jump in here because I'm a friend of you, and I'm also a friend of Ira.
Right.
I have to respectfully disagree on that point, but I understand your position, and that's why programs like this are good, because people have an opportunity to say
right,
what's
and of course
on their mind.
I would expect you to definitely stand up for it. But the fact is that if you want to know how to write, if you want to write any candidate this time, you have to file first to be, you're the election lawyer, but you have to file first to be a write-in candidate. And then there's a line provided underneath. And if you go to the website of the Board of Election Commissioners, it'll explain to you how to do it. I don't want to dwell on that because before Anita Alvarez comes, I want to talk about what you were talking about before about the ballot and how people fly through things and don't pay attention. And you know what? Instead of starting up at the president, okay, or the referendums, how about going down to the judges first? I mean, they have a major effect on everybody's life. If you happen to appear in court, I mean, you can lose your home, you can lose your child, you can lose your life, you can lose your marriage, or gain all the above, lose your freedom. I mean, there's high stakes if you go to court, and everybody flips through these elections like there's no tomorrow. There's really only 2 contested races, and I don't really want to go through them in detail. One of them is a Supreme Court race between Mary Jane Tice and Judge Riley. And there's another race out in the 12th Sub-Circuit where I do happen to like Andrea Schleifer. I think there's another race with an Edward Maloney who's recommended, and that's more within the city in the 4th District. But let's talk a little bit about the judicial retention ballot.
Well, that's a big issue because if people aren't familiar with the system, what happens is we have a system where we elect judges into the office, and then every 6 years for circuit judges thereafter, they have to get an affirmative vote of 60% of the people who vote on the retention ballot to keep their office. So you are going to see at the end of the ballot a laundry list of over 40 judges, and each one of those judges, there's going to be a box next to their name saying vote yes to retain or no not to retain this person. And every one of those judges has to get 60% yes vote in order to be retained from the number of people who vote in that particular race. So it's an interesting race because it's not a traditional race where candidates are running against one another. The judges are running against their record, and people have to decide, well, based on what I know of this judge, do I want this judge to retain for another 6 years, or do I want to take them out of office?
There are 57 judges on the ballot total. Oh, and by the way, I should just point out that we're not usually on this set. And Jim and I are trying to make eye contact, but still trying to look at the camera, and we're still trying to, hopefully in the next few years we'll figure out how to do that. And we're doing better than usual. But there's 57 judges on the retention ballot. Okay, the Chicago Bar Association has bad marks on 5 of them. One of them, John Egan, and I want to correct, because I want to mention this publicly. James Egan. He retired before the review came up, and he's still on the ballot. Even though he's retired, he's still on the ballot, and the rules of the Chicago Bar Association are if you don't show up for the interview, you get bad marks.
And I will tell you, having appeared before him and knowing his reputation, he was regarded very highly. He was a judge in the criminal court for many years, and the last several years before he did retire, he was in the civil courts. And attorneys and litigants universally had very good things to say about him as a judge. So he kind of got caught in the switches from a technical standpoint that he was not really seeking retention, he was running, but by the time the ballots were printed, he remained on the retention ballot, and he got a negative assessment from the bar associations, not because wasn't a good judge, but because he didn't appear, and the reason he didn't appear for rating was because he was retiring anyhow.
Now, using my cheat sheet, okay, which is due at Chicago, there are 4 judges who do have negative marks, and they are Judge Cynthia Brim, Judge Christopher Donnelly, Judge Pamela Hill-Veal. You know what? I forgot the name of the other one. But there's 4 of them. You can go to the website, okay? Because actually, go to the website and aviworld.com, check page 12 of the paper, and you can see all 4 names. And but these are people who really were given universally bad marks by the bar associations. And you know what? Everybody thinks sometimes it's just cool to vote no, because after all, everybody in government is like lousy. The fact is, having dealt with a lot of these judges, I will tell you, because I interviewed over 40 judges this year. On the whole, I'd say I liked all but a handful, and they are such a much higher quality group than most of the elected officials. You know, it's day and night. Most of these people are really fine people who want to do the right thing and are very knowledgeable. I mean, you're talking about some very sharp people here. You know, you're not talking about some of these races where you know, they slate X, Y, and Z because X, Y, and Z will X, Y, and Z you. So
yeah, I would say, just from my personal experience, and of course I don't know every one of the judges running for retention, but they're extremely well-qualified people who are seeking to be retained as judges. And I would urge people not to fall into the trap of just saying, well, I'm just going to vote no for the sake of voting no. Read up on the bar evaluations. You'll be able to learn a lot about the judges who are there. The chief judge of the Chancery Division, for instance, Moshe Jacobius, who originally ran in the Ninth Sub-Circuit, which covers your viewing area.
Who actually will be on our show the Thursday before the election.
Yeah.
Together with Judge Stuart Palmer, who I also think very highly of.
Yeah, and these are really well-qualified judges who are running for retention. So I just urge people not to go on there and vote no on everybody just for the sake of voting no. Read up, learn the qualifications, retain the bulk of the judges who are really well-qualified people.
Yeah, also the fact of the matter is that a number of people, now you only have to vote like a couple of times, three times, 3 out of every 4 years, and it really doesn't take that long, especially with the touch screen, and the different electronic stuff. So basically, why not start first on the bottom with the judges? Because what happens is 20 to 30% of people don't vote for judges. And there were some very unusual circumstances in the Ninth Sub-Circuit this time where a super high qualified person who was already a sitting judge, Michael Bender, should have been elected. And so many people didn't vote or just figured, I'm going to take a Republican ballot because I don't like, the candidate on the Democratic side. And here's a guy who should have won in a walk, who's now no longer a judge. And that's a real shame. It really is. Because, all the judges will tell you what a fine judge he is and how well he does on the bench and how he strives to be honest and fair in his judgments and deliberations.
Yeah, I know Michael. Michael's a very good man. One other thing I'd like to shift on to very quickly so we cover it, the mechanics of voting. Talk a little bit about early voting and absentee voting, if we could.
Sure, absolutely.
Early voting is going on right now, and within the city of Chicago, there are 50 early voting sites, 1 in each ward, and also the Board of Elections downtown at 69 West Washington, 9 to 5 every day. You can go, bring a picture ID, and you'll be able to vote early on a touchscreen. And that way, if the weather's bad or you get stuck at work or whatever, you'll have a chance to make sure you cast your ballot. The other way of early voting is to vote absentee. And we now have no-fault absentee. We've had it for a couple of election cycles. In the old days, Avi, you may remember, in order to vote absentee, you'd have to fill out an affidavit saying, I'm going to be out of town, or I'm too sick to get to the polling place, or some excuse. We now have no excuse absentee voting, which means you fill out a form saying, send me a ballot. And you can get that ballot mailed directly to your home, and you can sit at your leisure at your kitchen table and look at the newspapers such as Jewish Chicago and read the reviews of the candidates and make informed decisions as you're doing it.
No, that's 100% correct. And I think I think there's no reason a person should have had to file an affidavit. I remember the trouble we had to go through every year in order to do that.